people think about playing blues, and specifically playing solo fingerstyle blues guitar, I really believe that the alternating thumb groove is highly underrated. And I posted a whole rant about this a few months back. And basically, when you say alternating thumb, a lot of people think about things like Freight Train and playing in C and just dismiss alternating thumb as being kind of folky. But alternating thumb is all over the blues, and the feel that you can get from the alternating thumb, as opposed to like from a steady bass or a shuffle feel, is part and parcel of the blues. And I was reminded of this recently listening to my favorite new podcast, A History of Rock Music in 500 Songs, which I highly recommend. I'll post a link to down below. But in a period where they were talking about 50s rockabilly and early Elvis stuff, they played the Junior Parker version of Mystery Train. And I was like, there it is. There's that 2-beat feel. And it's the same kind of 2-beat feel that you hear on early Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf stuff. And it's the sound that you can get from playing with the alternating thumb. I just finished teaching a month's worth of material on the all-time blues classic Matchbox Blues. We did it with the alternating thumb. And so if you're interested in diving more into this style in more detail than this lesson, I recommend checking out my membership, the Fingerstyle 5, which you can learn more about at the link below or the link on screen. But right now, let's dive in and talk about how to get a great groove using the alternating thumb style. Okay, so the basics of the alternating thumb are not that hard to grasp. Your thumb is going to rock back and forth between various strings. At its simplest, in a key like A, you would hold down an A chord, maybe with an index bar like this, maybe with with using 3 separate fingers, and your thumb might alternate between the 5th string and the 4th string, and that would be it. Beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4. In its slightly more advanced version, 5th string, 4th string, 6th string, 4th string. And this just creates more variety, because instead of repeating yourself every 2 beats, you're repeating yourself every 4 beats. It takes 4 beats to come back around to the bass on the opening note on the 5th string. All very well and good. A lot of the time, the alternating thumb is taught as part of learning patterns, right? Which is also totally cool. But that tends to be more of an accompaniment style, and it tends to be used more in that kind of straight eighths rhythm, as opposed to something that's a little more syncopated, a little more based on a swing or a shuffle rhythm, and where there's a more percussive quality because of the way that you're damping the strings. And those are the 3 things I want to point out right now. So the difference between this and this comes down to those 3 qualities of being damped, more percussive, and more syncopated. And so let's go through what that really means. For starters, you can do some palm muting with your right hand so that this part of the thumb, really it's the joint, I guess, is resting where the strings meet the bridge. And you're really mostly concerned about damping the low strings. So that instead of ringing out, they have a drier sound and a quicker decay. And that's because you're using them as like the rhythmic underpinning of what we're doing. You want to be able to have that underneath so that when you play single notes on top, or double stops, or whatever you're putting in the melody, you get this contrast between notes that are ringing out and sustaining and notes in the bass that have that drier, quicker decay. Because if everything was ringing out, as the melody notes decay, the bass notes would take over a lot faster and overwhelm them. But by damping, you can keep the melody notes in the foreground and the bass a little bit in the background so that the melody notes speak as actual melody notes. So palm muting for starters. And then left hand damping, or fretting hand damping if you're playing this way. Now I am still doing a kind of alternation with my thumb and finger, and the basic idea is the thumb has got the downbeats, 5th string, 4th string, 6th string, 4th string. Index finger's got the ands or the offbeats. In this case on the 3rd string, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's the idea, but I'm not literally playing this, because again, that just sounds like an arpeggiated accompaniment pattern. What I'm doing is letting the left hand, the fretting hand, relax on the strings so that as a basic warm-up exercise, I'm just getting everything as ghost notes. So just that kind of damped percussive sound with no real pitch, because the finger is touching the strings but not pressing down. So you hear the 5th string, and then these notes are all ghost notes, and then you hear the 6th string on beat 3. And then if you do that with a swing rhythm, so that the first of every 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and of every pair of notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Those notes are longer and the ands are shorter. So instead of playing evenly, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, we're playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's got more of a swing or shuffle rhythm. So now we've got all that. Where does the syncopation come from? Syncopation means putting the stress on an unaccented note, which means more in classical music than in roots music, because so much is syncopated in roots music and the offbeats play such an important role. But for starters, we can start to emphasize the and of 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And all I'm doing to emphasize it is when I get to the and of 4, I am actually now, instead of ghosting the notes, I'm pressing my index finger to the string and picking up hard enough on the 3rd string that I also grab some of the 4th string as well. So I get and you can leave it down long enough to get the and of 1. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Or you can make it really tight. Relax your grip before you even get to the and of 1. And so when you start to bring that up to speed, that and of 4 like creates this push and this momentum into the next bar. So that's the foundation. Now beyond that, you can start to do all kinds of things. Like if you've got this pattern, then on the 4th beat, instead of going up to the 4th string, you could play a bass note at the 3rd fret on the low string to walk back up into the next bar. And you don't have to do that every time. You could do it every other time. Again, to broaden the situation, so you're not playing the same thing every bar, but you're playing more of a 2-bar idea now. The 1st bar goes like that. The 2nd bar goes like this. So now you've got this sort of bigger arc. And from there, you can start to, that's just the groove, right? That's the foundation. So you can start to play licks on top of that. You can start to play other voicings up the neck. And all of that still relies on this idea of ghosting on the 4th string, right? So if you're going to come up here, instead of just letting everything ring out, sometimes you're relaxing your grip. So every time you relax your grip, you're creating a little bit of space. So it starts to sound like, you know, you're trying to get the feeling like, well, here's what the bass is doing and here's what the guitarist is doing on top of that. Right? That kind of feel. Which is how you might actually play a rhythm guitar part, and then the same goes for trying to play some single notes. If you're trying to use the blues scale down here, then having that index finger riding along the fourth string and keeping it damped. That gives you a little more freedom because you're not really responsible for playing like a real bass note. You're just getting a percussive sound there on 2 and 4. Right, and then you can start to think in these sort of broader musical terms, like, well, I'm going to have licks for 3 bars. Then I'm going to answer that in the second bar. And I'm going to play it again. Oh, and now I'm going to answer with some chords. And then back to the groove. Like that. So that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as the kinds of things you can do with the alternating thumb groove. It makes a great accompaniment for vocals, it makes a great underpinning to your own improvising, and it makes a great way to arrange instrumental versions of blues tunes, all of which I cover in much more detail inside the membership material of the Fingerstyle 5. Right now, we're actually working through the tune Matchbox Blues, and so the lessons on arranging the tune and how to put that melody over that kind of alternating thumb bass line are available on an ongoing basis inside the membership, as are the upcoming lessons on how to improvise over an alternating thumb blues in A. So if that's something you'd like to learn more about, you can go to the link below or the link on screen to find out more and sign up. In the meantime, if you have a question or a comment about today's lesson, please leave it down below. I would love to hear from you. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.